My name is Haley Turner. I'm 29 years old. And the night my sister called my award stupid, my phone lit up with one simple notification that said everything about my place in this family. I was standing in my tiny kitchen, still wearing my stained apron, staring at the official email on my laptop that said I was about to receive the biggest award of my career. My hands were shaking when I opened our family group chat and typed, "Hey, I have some news. Um, I'm getting an award next week. There's a ceremony. It's being broadcast live. I would really love it if you could be there." Um, I watched the three little dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, my sister replied, "We don't have time for your pointless award. We're going to dinner that night." A second later, my mom chimed in, "Don't blame us, honey. We already made reservations." My dad didn't say a word. He just liked my sister's message, like he was co signing it. I stared at the screen for a long second, feeling that familiar burn in my chest, the one I'd learned to swallow since I was a kid. Then I took a breath, forced a smile, even though no one could see it, and typed back, "That's fine. Have a nice dinner." They sent a couple of thumbs up and a laughing emoji, like we had just agreed on something trivial, like I had not just invited them to the biggest moment of my life. That night, while they were clinking glasses over pasta at their favorite restaurant, the live broadcast started on the TV above their heads. And what flashed across that screen in the middle of their perfect little dinner made every single one of them freeze in their seats. If you want to know how that stupid award turned into the one thing they could never ignore, keep listening. I didn't always know my place in this family so clearly. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I honestly thought things were normal, that every little sister was just background noise to her older sister's highlight reel. Um, my sister, Danielle, was the star from the minute she learned how to flip her hair and smile for a camera. She was 5 years older, loud, charming, the kind of girl who could turn a trip to the grocery store into a full story on Instagram. My parents, Robert and Elaine, said they were just supporting her confidence. But the truth was, our house revolved around her moods, her schedules, her crises. When Danielle didn't make the cheer squad one year, we had a family meeting about it, followed by ice cream and a pep talk. When I won a middle school cooking contest with a simple roasted chicken recipe I'd practiced for weeks, my mom said, "That's nice, honey," then turned to ask Danielle how her group project was going. By the time I was 13, I had figured out the only place I felt seen was in the kitchen. You know those kids who disappear into video games? I disappeared into recipes while Danielle was out trying new salons or begging my parents for money for another weekend trip. I was glued to cooking videos on an old tablet, pausing and rewinding to learn how to chop onions without crying or how to make bread rise properly in a chilly Portland kitchen. I started baking cookies and small loaves of banana bread, handing them to neighbors just to see someone's face light up when they took a bite. Eventually, I began selling them at the local farmers market on Saturdays. I'd stand there behind a shaky folding table with my little handwritten sign, and strangers would tell me, "This is amazing. You made this yourself?" And for a few hours, I felt like I mattered. At home, though, it was different. My dad would sigh about how much time I spent playing in the kitchen, and my mom kept telling me I should be more like Danielle and think about a real career, something glamorous or corporate. They listened to Danielle talk for hours about her job at a trendy boutique and her plans to blow up on social media. But when I tried to explain a new recipe I was testing, they would nod politely, check their phones, and change the subject. I learned early that in my family, what I loved was considered a hobby at best, a distraction at worst. Leaving Portland felt less like chasing a dream and more like sneaking out of a life that was never really mine. When I got accepted into a culinary program in New York, my parents treated it like I'd signed up for an extended summer camp instead of a serious school. Danielle joked, "So you're going to spend all that money just to learn how to chop vegetables?" My mom shushed her, but she was smiling when she did it. My dad hugged me at the airport and said, just make sure you have a backup plan, okay? Not everyone can make it in food. I nodded, but inside, I made a promise to myself. I was never coming back as the girl they thought was just playing chef. New York was loud, chaotic, and somehow exactly what I needed. I spent my days in hot kitchens at school, my nights working part time at a little cafe that smelled like espresso and fresh bread. I burned dishes, cut my fingers, cried in walk in fridges, and still woke up every morning starving for more. One of my instructors recommended me for a position at a fine dining restaurant in Manhattan run by Chef Anthony Reyes, a name I had only seen in glossy magazines before. Working for him felt like being thrown into a storm. He yelled, he demanded perfection, and he noticed everything. But when he watched me plate a simple roasted carrot dish with a herb yogurt sauce I'd tweaked a dozen times, he paused and said, you have a point of view. Don't lose it. Those 5 words did more for me than every be more like your sister comment I had ever heard back home. I started experimenting with ways to make comfort food lighter, fresher, still satisfying. One night after service, I filmed a quick video in the tiny staff kitchen, tossing together a grilled veggie burger with my own homemade dressing. I posted it online without thinking much. A week later, the video had blown up. People tagged me in their recreations, begging for the recipe, asking where they could buy the sauce. That was the first time it hit me that my food could exist outside of whatever kitchen I was standing in. I started bottling small batches of my dressing, selling it locally under the name Turner Kitchen. It was messy and small and nowhere near perfect, but it was mine. I called my parents to tell them my sauce was selling out at a local market. My mom said, that's cute, honey. Then passed the phone to Danielle so she could tell me about a new collaboration with a local photographer. As usual, my little victory was just background noise to her big plans. Turner Kitchen stopped being just a side hustle the day a buyer from a regional grocery chain tasted my dressing at a food expo and said, we could put this on shelves. Within a year, my small batches turned into real production runs. I was still working brutal shifts in the restaurant, but now on my days off, I was in meetings about labels, sourcing, and distribution. It was exhausting in a way my parents never saw because all they ever commented on were the pretty photos I posted when something actually went right. A local article called my dressing the kind of thing that could change how busy people eat at home. And that piece got picked up by a bigger food blog. From there, things snowballed. Turner Kitchen was accepted into a national program that supported emerging food brands. And suddenly, I was flying out to conferences, doing demos, talking about healthy comfort food on tiny stages in hotel ballrooms. That's how my name ended up on the radar of people I'd grown up admiring from a distance. One cold afternoon, I was at my tiny office space tasting a new batch when an email popped up with a subject line that made my stomach drop. James Beard Foundation nomination notification. My hands shook as I clicked it. They weren't just nominating me, they were telling me I was this year's Rising Star Chef of the Year. There would be a ceremony in Los Angeles at a hotel I'd only ever seen on TV, and the event would be broadcast live on a national food network. For a minute, I just sat there staring at the screen, listening to my own heartbeat. Then, despite everything, my first instinct was to share it with my family. I opened our group chat, the one that had been mostly filled with Danielle's selfies and my mom's chain messages for months, and started typing. I explained what the James Beard Awards were, how big this was, how the ceremony would be next week live on TV, and how much it would mean to me if they could either come to LA or at least watch the broadcast. I hit send and watched the little delivered check mark appear. 3 dots popped up, disappeared, came back. Finally, Danielle replied, we don't have time for your pointless award. We're going to dinner that night. A second later, my mom added, "Don't blame us, honey. We already made reservations. My dad didn't say a word. He just liked my sister's message." A tiny thumbs up that landed like a punch. I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar mix of anger and numbness rising up my throat. For a second, the old version of me wanted to beg to explain again how important this was. Instead, I swallowed hard, forced my fingers to stay steady, and typed, "That's fine. Have a nice dinner." When they answered with a couple of emojis and a joke about dessert, it hit me clear as day. If they couldn't show up for me now, standing on the edge of the biggest moment of my career, they never really would. What I didn't know then was that the universe was about to make sure they watched every second anyway. The night of the ceremony, Los Angeles felt like a different planet compared to the gray drizzle I'd left behind in Portland. The Beverly Hilton was glowing, all marble floors and chandeliers, and people who smelled like expensive perfume and success. I stood in the lobby, clutching my invitation, wearing a simple but sharp black dress I'd saved up for. And for a moment, I felt like an imposter who had accidentally wandered into someone else's life. Then they pinned my name badge on, and I saw it in print: Haley Turner, Turner Kitchen. I took a breath and reminded myself I hadn't been handed this for free. I had earned every blister, every burn, every sleepless night. Backstage, the air buzzed with nerves and hairspray. I caught glimpses of chefs I'd only ever seen on TV, hosts rehearsing their lines, camera operators counting down under their breath. Chef Anthony had flown in and found me by the water coolers, pulling me into a quick hug. "Whatever happens out there," he said quietly, "you belong in this room. Don't forget that." They lined us up by category, and when it was time for a rising star, my heart hammered so hard I could barely hear the presenter speak. Somewhere in another time zone, my family was sitting at a table at their favorite Italian place in Portland, La Trattoria Verde, ordering wine and arguing about appetizers. I knew that because Danielle had posted a boomerang of their drinks clinking together with the caption, "Family dinner night," just an hour earlier. No mention of me, no mention of the ceremony. The presenter's voice cut through my thoughts. And this year's James Beard Foundation Rising Star Chef of the Year goes to... There was a tiny pause that felt like it stretched on forever. Haley Turner from Turner Kitchen in New York City. The room erupted in applause. For a second, I couldn't move. Then my legs remembered how to walk, and I found myself on stage, lights burning hot on my face, trophy suddenly heavy in my hands. The host leaned in and whispered, "Smile, they're cutting to you live." And somewhere deep inside, a little version of me, standing behind a rickety farmer's market table, burst into tears. I gave my speech, short and shaky, but honest. I talked about growing up feeling like what I loved was a hobby, about wanting to make food that didn't make people feel guilty or left out. I thanked the people who had believed in me when it was easier not to. I did not mention my family. When I walked off stage, my phone in my clutch buzzed so hard it felt like it was trying to escape. I ignored it. I didn't know that at that exact moment in Portland, the TV above the bar at La Trattoria Verde had just switched over to the Food Network's live coverage of the awards. The restaurant was buzzing, full of chatter and the clink of cutlery when the announcer's voice cut through the noise. Up next, our Rising Star Chef of the Year, a young woman who started at farmers markets in Portland, Oregon, and is now changing the way busy people eat across the country. The camera cut to my face on stage, my name in huge letters at the bottom of the screen. Haley Turner, the host said clearly, from Turner Kitchen. At the table under the TV, my dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth. My mom slowly turned her head upward, eyes widening. Danielle's wine glass stopped just short of her lips as she squinted at the screen as if her brain refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. Around them, people started murmuring. Um, a server glanced from the TV to their table, putting two and two together. Someone at the bar said, "Wait, isn't that your daughter? Didn't you just say she was in food school or something?" Another diner pulled out their phone and started filming the moment, catching the exact second my parents realized the award they'd called pointless was being broadcast above their heads to the entire restaurant. By the time I made it back to my hotel room that night, my phone looked like it was trying to burn a hole through my clutch. I finally tossed it onto the bed, kicked off my heels, and opened the screen. The group chat with my family was at the top, lit up with more notifications than I'd seen in years. There were also Instagram tags, Twitter mentions, DMs from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. I ignored everything except the group chat and tapped it open. It was chaos. My mom had written, "Haley, we just saw you on TV. Why didn't you tell us it was this big?" My dad said, "Your mother and I are in shock. Everyone at the restaurant recognized you." The owner turned up the volume. Danielle's messages were the most frantic. "Haley, what is going on? People were filming us at dinner." Another one, "Why didn't you say it was the James Beard Awards? Do you know how stupid I looked?" Then a screenshot from her Instagram. Dozens of comments under her boomerang from dinner. "Is this the sister who skipped her own family's awards show? Imagine calling your sister's James Beard pointless." Someone had already posted a video from La Trattoria Verde to TikTok. The caption read, "When you skip your sister's pointless award and end up watching her win a James Beard on the restaurant TV." The clip showed the TV above the bar, my speech playing, then awkwardly zoomed down to my family's table, their faces pale and frozen. The video already had hundreds of thousands of views and climbing. As I scrolled, another video appeared stitched onto the first. It was an old clip from Danielle's page that she'd clearly forgotten about, where she sat in her boutique's back room wearing her work lanyard, laughing into the camera. "My little sister thinks she's going to change the world with salad dressing," she'd said, rolling her eyes. Like, girl, this is real life, not some cooking show. Your healthy sauce isn't going to pay the bills. The comment section under that one was brutal. People tagged the brand she worked for. They tagged me. They used words like jealous, mean girl, and walking red flag. I was still taking it all in when my phone lit up with Danielle's name calling. I stared at it until it stopped, then watched as another text came through. "Pick up, please." A part of me, the old part that always wanted to smooth things over, almost called back. Instead, I set the phone down and went to take off my makeup. When I finally answered her the next morning, it was because she was waiting for me in the hotel lobby. I spotted her before she saw me, hunched in a chair, eyes red, hair pulled back in a messy knot instead of perfectly styled like usual. When she looked up and saw me, she stood so fast her coffee almost spilled. "Haley," she said, voice cracking. Thank God. We walked to a quiet corner, and for once she didn't launch into a story about herself. She just blurted, "I got fired." I blinked. "From the boutique?" She nodded, swallowing hard. "They said the videos made the brand look bad. They said I mocked you, mocked people trying to eat healthy, and now they're getting DMs and bad reviews. They made me pack up my stuff in front of everyone." A bitter laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. "So now my healthy sauce is affecting your real life, huh?" She flinched like I'd hit her. "I know I was awful," she said quickly. "I was jealous, okay? You actually stuck with something. You actually made it. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think you'd actually get that far." She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara. I'm sorry. I'm really really sorry. I need to start over, and I was hoping maybe you could, I don't know, introduce me to someone, help me get a job in your world." There it was, not just an apology, but an ask. The old Haley would have folded. Instead, I felt a calm settle over me. "Danielle," I said quietly, "for years My work was a punchline to you. My biggest goals were cute or pointless. You're not the reason I started Turner Kitchen, and you're not gonna be the reason it hires anyone. She stared at me, stunned. So, you're just going to let me sink? I shook my head. No, I'm going to let you swim on your own for once. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but I didn't look away. I'm done being the extra in your story, I added. And I'm definitely not going to let my career become your backup plan now. When Danielle stood there with her eyes all red, I realized this was the first time I'd ever talked to her without shrinking myself down. We just stood in that quiet hotel corner for a second, listening to the hum of the AC and the muffled voices drifting in from the lobby. Then she let out a breath and stared at her shoes. You've changed, she said. I shrugged. Not really. I just stopped pretending that what you say doesn't hurt. She gave this small, humorless laugh. So what now? We just pretend we're not sisters. I shook my head. No, we're still sisters, but I'm done trying to prove anything to you. I'm going to focus on my life, and you're going to deal with your choices. That's it. I didn't say like last night, but we both knew what I meant. The conversation ended in this weird, unfinished space. I gave her a quick hug, more out of habit than comfort, then headed for the elevator. As the doors slid shut, I watched her get smaller and smaller, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for walking away.